Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Pod Amongst Men. I'm your host, Steve B., and this is Coffee Break Conversations for the 21st Century. My guest today is Danny R. He was the lead singer of a band called BEDLIGHT for Blue Eyes. He's a guy I know from back in the day. We used to play shows together. I mean, he and his band were substantially further than I ever made it. They were assigned to a label called Trustkill Records. Danny was kind enough to come on here and, reminisce of some of our glory days of rock star life and talk about what it was like adjusting back to regular life, after those days were over. And now the change into fatherhood, husbandhood, all that good stuff. So this is my conversation with Danny R. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, so they know who you are. Danny, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little backstory, you know what I mean?
Okay, so, I think the best way to do it is kind of the backstory, I guess, of how you know me, would be, so many years ago, I was in
many moons.
Yeah, many moons. At this point, it seems like a distant memory. Many moons ago, I was in a band, a Jersey band called BEDLIGHT for Blue Eyes. We were a touring band signed to a label called Trustkill Records. I hate to say that's what I'm best known for. But that's kind of, who I am, who I still am, is a singer, songwriter. And yeah, that's kind of how we first met, was playing shows, local Jersey shows.
We used to play at all the local spots around the Bridgewater area. You guys were from Berkeley Heights. I remember that's what I used to say on the MySpace. Is that where you're from though?
No, I see. So I was originally from, at the time, New York. When I joined the band, I spent the majority of my life in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, which is where there was really only one member from Berkeley Heights. It was Derek, the guitarist, was the only one. His parents lived in Berkeley Heights, and everyone else was kind of spread out through, I forgot what it is. The towns, or even like Bernardsville and stuff like that. So he was the only one. So I was traveling back and forth from Queens, New York to Jersey, at least, 4 times a week.
Yeah,
sometimes I'd stay there for, significant amounts of time, especially if we were gearing up for a tour or something like that. But
so you're from Queens. What part of Queens?
Flushing, which is right outside of. It's on a good day, it's like a 20-minute drive into the city.
Yeah, on a good day.
Yeah, on a good. Well, now you could probably get there in no time, but back in the day, getting over that George Washington was a little sketchy.
Mm-hmm. It's still a little sketchy.
Yeah, it's always going to be sketchy.
I mean, I worked in that area, in Fort Lee on the Jersey side.
Okay, yeah.
So they have 2 buildings that went up right there, and that's the only time I've really left Jersey City for work.
Right, yeah, it wasn't fun.
No, and you see it every day. It's just mayhem and just sadness. So, okay, you joined BEDLIGHT. Now, anybody who's familiar with the band, as I'm sure a lot of the people going to be listening are, obviously we know you weren't one of the founding members.
Nope.
You were replacing someone.
Yes.
So, actually, before we get into that, let's get into you. How did you become a singer? I know everybody has that point in their life when they realize, oh wait, I can play an instrument, or I can sing, or this all makes sense to me. The A, B, C, I get it. What was that point for you? Do you remember? When you realized you had musical talent?
So for me, it was I kind of started. This is so typical, but I started in my local church choir. Mm-hmm. Just as I was a Catholic school kid. So everyone, you either became an altar boy or you sang in the choir or you did something like that. I happened to just join the choir because that's what people were doing. And I had like little inklings of like, oh, I kind of sound okay, and people would tell me like, hey, wow, you've got a really nice voice. And I kind of just kept singing, kind of like did the vocal lessons with people. At that time, I did like commercial auditions and things like that, um, to where they started to become a little bit more based on my voice.
Hmm.
Um, and then it wasn't until the eighth grade when I started looking into high schools, where I didn't want to go the same route as all my friends were, the all boys Catholic school that's just what you did. So I ended up going to this like brand new performing arts high school that was in Long Island City, in Queens, and that was just from there on I kind of took it, super seriously. Was a big theater geek, and I'm trying to think when I joined. So I joined Bedlight. So I graduated high school 2005. I finished in the middle of my freshman year of college. I joined Bedlight. So
Was that your first band?
Bedlight was my first foray into any sort of rock
All
band.
right.
I mean, we'll probably get into, but it's funny because I showed up to my audition with Bedlight
Mhm.
with like my typical theater kid binder full of like lyrics with the page protector, and like kind of like, oh, where's the music stand sort of thing,
Yeah.
not realizing I was in Derek's parents' basement filled with clouds of like smoke and beer cans, and it was like, oh yeah, you're gonna try out. So yeah, so pretty much the transition into high school was when I really started to know that I had something there that was a little more than just like the choir boy.
Mhm.
It was a little more like, hey, this could be something if you work hard enough at it.
Yeah, you just started way earlier than me because like I always thought I could sing, and then I realized around like 18, I'm like, oh no, I can't sing at all. Like I'm not very good. So, Drew, the guitar player you remember Drew?
Yeah,
He actually sold me an old bass he had for like $30. He's like, just yeah, I'll teach you how to read tabs, and you can just practice and hang out. It'll be fun, and then eventually you'll get good, and we can play together. And for like 5 months, I just sat around and I just learned how to read tabs and played.
that's
And then next
awesome.
thing you know, when they were getting ready to form In Arms Like These, they needed a bass player, and she was like, "Hey, I'll teach you the song. Just come, try out, see how you do." So I was like deadly serious. I was sitting in my room. I gotta learn this. I'm skipping meals and stuff. I'm trying to learn
Right.
this song. And then when I went to practice, and they're like, "All right, cool. Yeah, Steve's pretty good. He can join." And they were like, "Yeah, how long you been playing?" I'm like, "Oh, like 5 months."
5 months, like
What?
5 seconds ago is when I learned
Yeah.
this.
And then
Yeah,
for like, oh, go ahead.
no, that I mean that's so similar. I mean, like when I joined Bedlight, it was kind of like, when did you learn the songs? A day ago.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was a fan of the band. I would go see them before I joined, when they played Manhattan. But like, I didn't know their songs well enough to be like, yeah, I could go on stage and perform these. It was more, and like I said, like I look back to like pictures when I first joined, and I'm like, it looked like I fell into a Hot Topic rack, like, you know what I mean, like just me playing lead singer of like, before I kind of came into my own in the band. It
Hmm.
was like, how do I be a band member? Oh, let me wear this like sweet Trustkill thermal shirt that I got from the owner, and these tight jeans from Pacific Sun, and all this stuff. And like, but I, similar, like it was just more of like, it was thrown at me, and I was like, all right, I need to learn these all so I can do this. And that was like such a, like the sweet spot, I feel, of like that resurgence of Jersey music.
Oh
Like
yeah, that scene.
when
Yeah.
you guys popped off and we were all playing like local shows, and you
Hmm.
were Hamilton, Bloomfield, the skate park, all these places that we were playing, was like
Hmm.
that resurgence of like, holy crap, like we're having a grand old time playing around
Yeah.
Jersey.
That Jersey music scene was really thriving for that
Yeah.
time, and I feel like it's completely gone now, or maybe I just
Yeah.
got old and I'm out of it. But um, yeah, it was great because there was so many different people always around, and every town had their local bands and everything, and most people were generally pretty cool. Um, but it was a fun time, man, and I mean, for you, it's got to be interesting. Well, I mean, what you were saying too, like when you joined the band, like it looks like you fell into a Hot Topic rack.
Right.
I kind of had the same thing because everybody else in the band had like the scene kid hair, and
Right.
was, like skinny, and then here's me like this short, like heavy-set bald guy. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna try my best to look the part, you know.
Right, dude. I'll be straight up, and all my friends who knew me were laughing because I was a straight up Queens, New York kid in a time where like the spiked gelled up hair was the thing. You went to the local barber and got your hair shaped up, and like when I joined, it was like, listen, buddy, none of the spiked up gel stuff. You got to figure it out. And like I said, as I progressed in the band, if you looked at from day one to the last day I was in the band, was this progression of like, when did I have the mohawk with the colors in it? When did I have the swoop do with the blonde streak in it?
The one eye.
Yeah, like I had that all as I started to kind of get more comfortable in those shoes.
It's funny. I always like that scene was so interesting because a lot of people looking at it from the outside, like they don't know what to make of it.
Right.
Because there was all these kids basically dressed the same, and especially with the bands, you could have like a band like Bedlight dressed the same as guys in a band like In Arms.
Right.
And the music was so drastically different, I felt like, you know.
And the cool part about that, which again, from the outside looking in, like you're saying, is like you can have a band like Bedlight. I'll throw out another, like a band like Crash Romeo, who, you know, good friends of ours and you guys, but we could play with you guys and people would come and it wouldn't be weird. You know, it would be like you had your fans, you had our fans, you had Crash's fans or any one of those, you know, local Jersey bands that was totally different sounding, but everyone was just there and having a good time. And like, you know, you guys could be sitting there screaming your heads off, and then all of a sudden I'd come up there and like shake my hips, and people would be like, "Oh, this is just what a Jersey show is. Like, this is awesome." Like, so that was what was so cool about that scene, and like something like I still to this day is like the biggest thing I miss is like that feeling of like being on stage, that camaraderie, and just being able to like, you know, getting to see like you guys or Crash or at that time Vampire for Hire or Moraine or all these other bands that were around, where it was like, you know, you saw each other at Bloomfield and you were like, dude, what's up? Oh, we're playing together. This is awesome. You know,
we would just like hang out at those theaters and clubs and stuff, just because we knew everybody there.
Oh yeah. It was sweet.
See, we had the one downside that we had with like playing heavier music was that some of the people that would like that were more of like the jock, like musclehead type dudes.
Right. And especially in Jersey, it was tough. It was tough to be like, I feel like you guys were making that transition into what we saw. And this isn't like a weird, like, this is a good thing that I'm saying. Like, you guys were making that way into like that Rise Records artery movement, where you guys were younger, you guys looked the part, really, like you guys looked the part, you know, Drew did he have a lip piercing? Am I remembering that?
He had the snake bite.
The swoop, the snake bites. Yeah. Tony had the colored hair. You know, everyone kind of had their own like little look to them, and it was Jersey was known for like beatdown music, and like you know, you'd go to the VFW shows to where it was like 10 kids and sweaty, like just sweat fest. But like when you guys kind of came on, it was kind of transitioning more into that, you know, stuff with like the more melodic stuff. And I think it was a different time. So it was definitely where you're saying like, it was a lot more like jocks and bros and they're like,
well, plus they would think of like they would see a pit or something break out, and they would think, "Oh yeah, let's go in there and just like fight people." And it was never what it was meant to be about. But it's weird. That's like, especially like mosh pits and stuff in those scenes that we existed in. It was never like just going in there to hurt people. Like that was like a form of dancing.
Oh yeah,
to those kids, and it's really hard to explain, and it's hard for people that were outside of that to wrap their heads around. It just so many things. Just like, wait, this doesn't make sense. He's like, no, but it is. It is what it is, and it makes sense to us. Okay,
right.
But I always noticed, especially with those scenes, is that it eventually became just like other, you know, scenes that existed in life. Like, for instance, you're in school, like you're into music, you're the emo kid, you have like the hair
Right.
and everything, and you wear like Hot Topic t-shirts and stuff. Like, I always looked at that as those were the kids that didn't want to be part of the popularity contest, or they didn't want to hang out with the jocks and cheerleaders. But then when you get inside that scene, it seems like just like any other group, there's like a little hierarchy within that, and there's assholes and there's cool people, and
especially towards the later years. I'll always talk about this, and I've gotten in trouble for talking about this before too, with close friends who have done this. You know, it became the scene became one of this camaraderie and hanging out and having fun, like to like you said, this hierarchy and all this stuff, to then like the thing that always drove me nuts was like then like the overprivileged scene, which was the people who somehow always managed to like show up in like the green room, you know, or like all of a sudden they were sitting on the side of the stage and you're like, who the heck are you? Especially like it ran rampant at like places like Warped Tour and Bamboozle and stuff like that, where you have all these people like that were like, I'm not on the guest list. How can I not be on the guest list? I'm your biggest this person, and I did this and I did that. And I'm your friend. And you're like, yo, I got my mom and my brother in, like not you. And then it's like this whole craziness. So like that hierarchy of like, then it was like the overprivileged scene where it was like, we deserve this. And we should have this. But like, I don't know, like for me, Jersey was always like, you always saw the same faces. You always saw the same kids. And it meant something. Like, I feel like every time we played Jersey, and this is why like towards the end of the band, it was so hard to like leave it behind. And even now it's still hard to kind of like leave it behind, is because like there was such this connection with those groupings of people, whether it be Jersey or anywhere else, that were so deeply into your music and so deeply into coming to a place where they felt safe and they felt like the bands almost were going to take care of them for that night. Like they went there and they knew they could have the worst day. And it's just not like that anymore, because there's no such thing as a scene. You know, when you go and see a band, it's at a bigger venue. It's a lot more closed off. Like I laugh at like the paid meet and greets. Like every day was a meet and greet for us, you know, like I sold the merch, you know what I mean? Like,
well, most of the places we played didn't even have a green room. Like you get off stage and you just walk into the crowd.
Hamilton Street was like a curtain, you know, like it was like a curtain, but it was with the merch. So it was like, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, it was definitely evolving. But when I feel like when I first started, like late 2006 was like this, like just this sweet spot. And it kind of was like that when I joined, as far as like where we were at as a band, was like this kind of like mentality, this hungry mentality of like, we're going to do this. We're going to come back. We're going to show everyone that we could do this. Because like going back to what you said, I wasn't the first singer. BEDLIGHT had a lot to prove at that point, after getting so much hype off of their first album with this powerhouse of a singer. Then to have him kind of leave the band and then have me join a virtual unknown to anybody was like pretty crazy, and not something that was done very often.
Yeah, I mean, suffice it to say, you had some pretty big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
You know, Christian, I never really knew the guy, but whatever you're going to say, you have to say he was a very talented singer.
I take nothing away from the dude. I was a fan of the band before I joined it. I remember the reason I liked BEDLIGHT is because I saw myself in Christian, as far as this is a dude who kind of sounds like me. Like he didn't sound like the other scene bands at the time. He didn't sound like the other punk bands at the time, pop punk. He sounded so different. And when I heard him, I was like, wow, that guy kind of sounds like me. And so before I joined, and when I was surfing MySpace bulletins and saw that there was auditions, that helped me to kind of be like, I could do that. Like that could be me. And that's kind of like the dude's a powerhouse, still is a powerhouse
Hmm.
of a vocalist, and will always be a powerhouse of a vocalist. I mean, he's one of my favorite singers, as far as from the band era, for sure.
Well, you definitely, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like there was nobody else doing those kind of vocals
No,
in our scene of music. I mean, really in many scenes outside of actual like pop or opera
right.
even. So the fact that you were able to find the band and they were able to find you and link up, and that was really amazing because, Danny, I have to tell you, you're no slouch when it comes to singing, so it was really impressive. And personally, like, I know me and Drew had always talked about this because Drew was a really a big fan. He told me, like, well, we had discussed, like, the styles, like your voices weren't that different, so it
Right.
fit really well, but your style was a little different. Like, whereas Christian would go on these crazy runs and stuff like that.
Right.
Like you would do what felt best for the song instead of what felt like what was best for you.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so to speak.
I definitely feel you on that. Like,
Not to knock him, it's just two
no,
different
no, no.
styles.
I totally get it because that's something that we heard before. That was something that was a critique in the past. One of the biggest critiques, live critiques, not so much on the album, but definitely live critiques, was that with Christian. And that's not a knock. That's just the dude can sing, and he wanted to, let people know that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, part of that was being scared to death being in a rock band. And then the other part of that was, trying to do what, like you said, what was best for the song, what sounded best. I never wanted to like sound bad, so I never wanted to experiment or try something until later on. Like when we had Life on Life's Terms out, which was the album that I did with them, I was obviously way more comfortable with those songs because we wrote them, I recorded them. So I would take liberties with some of that music. But yeah, like it was one of those things where like I've always been about the song. And I feel like if you're in the crowd and you're singing my song and all of a sudden I go on this rant or I do something that you can't sing back with me or you can't sing along with, there's a disconnect, right?
Yeah.
So like if I'm singing along to one of my favorite bands and all of a sudden he goes on this thing and I was so into it, all of a sudden it creates this small little hiccup and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm not as into this as I was. And for me, I was always thinking about like, if I look out into the crowd, I need to see someone singing back to me and I need to be able for them to match me so that they can have the biggest connection to the song. And if they have that connection, that means that they're going to buy a ticket to the next show. They're going to come talk to us at the merch table and they're going to be a fan every time we come to town because they know that like they could come and have a good experience at a show.
Definitely. So when you joined, like, what was that adjustment like? You're all of a sudden your first band is a signed band, which was a huge like benchmark for any band out there. To get signed was a
Right.
big deal. And regardless of how big the label is, like just saying, yeah, we get a record contract, we get an album out, like that's got to be pretty nerve-wracking first starting up. Like
It was insane.
How did you adjust?
It was insane. I was 18 at the time. When I signed on the dotted line, I was 18. So like to kind of, I guess, give a little bit of history before like the transition into being in a band. So when I joined, I had never driven out of New York City before in my life, or been really anywhere. And I lied to my parents, told them I was driving with a friend. But they knew I was auditioning. Parents have always been super supportive.
So many good stories start with, so I lied to my parents.
Right. So because they would have like been like, wait, what are you doing? Like, you're not going to Jersey by yourself. So I driven there. I pull up to Derek's parents' house. First person I see is Itchy, who was the drummer at the time. He gets out of the yellow van with the Rocket Clothing sticker on the back, which we were super known for on our yellow gross van. And he brings me into Derek's house. I go in with my binder full of music. And what sold them on me, because they knew I could sing, and I could kind of read their faces as I'm singing. So my audition was me, Derek, and Itchy and Derek kind of playing very lightly with the songs as I sang over them. So there's a part in Dig on This, which is a song off the Dawn, which has a big key change after the bridge, I believe. And I overshot it and sang it higher than it was supposed to be. And they said that was their moment where they said, wow, we can grow with this kid. Mm-hmm. There's potential there. So after that, we went to Barnes & Noble Starbucks, and I sang to Dan, the guitarist, who was the manager there at the time. Not to throw Dan under the bus. There's nothing wrong with that.
Hey, I worked at Barnes & Noble too. No worries.
We sat in his beat-up RAV4 at the time, and I sang Open Arms by Journey in his car.
Wow.
While they're all chain smoking. And literally, so I get back in the car, the van with Itchy. While we're driving back to my car, which is at Derek's parents' house, Itchy looks over at me. He goes, I'm just letting you know it's yours if you want it. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, no, like, we don't need to hear anything else. Like, this is yours if you want it. So I was like, I got to talk to my family. Like, let me go home. Let me talk to my family. Let me sleep on it. In my head, I'm like, I'm sold. This is my life for the next however many years. So I make the lonely drive home on like Route 22. I think it was the one that's got like all like the crazy like stoppages and stuff.
That sounds about right. 22.
So I actually had to pull over at one point and vomit because I was so nervous and overwhelmed by what had happened. I got lost going home, which kept me an hour out from my normal destination. So lo and behold, I obviously accept the offer, and we were off to the races. We literally, when I joined, 2 months later, I went on my first U.S. tour, which was it was us, Roses Are Red, the band Far Less, and the band The Panic Division. And it was my first full U.S. tour, and the transition was crazy. I was a kid who never saw the country to then I'm in a van with these dudes who I looked up to for some time and now have gotten to know for a few months, and was able to travel the world and be in front of people and see things and experience things that I had never experienced before. So the transition was crazy. I had never been out of New York City or like my uncle's house in Florida, So it was like being able to like know that tumbleweeds exist and they're not just something in a movie, was crazy. Going to California for the first time, going to places like Texas and just the craziness of that the transition was insane. Like it was, going from this theater kid and then to this kid that was studying like music education in college to then telling him you're going to get in a van with a bunch of other dudes and travel the world and play music and then eventually write an album with them was insane. It was like, I cherish that time. It wasn't always the best of times, especially towards the end, but it is something that I hold near and dear in my heart and will like forever hold that in my heart.
That was always one of my favorite parts, was just getting to go different places with the band, especially like for me later on, me and Drew had started a cover band and we got to go a few more places with that. But yeah, like being in the car, you have all your gear loaded in, you get your snacks, everybody's just hanging out, say we're driving to Boston. It's like, all right, we got 4 hours, having to find an overpass so we could stop and pee under it without all the cars seeing our meat and everything.
See, but
oh, go ahead.
No, the crazy thing was when I first joined too, and I don't know if you guys ever toured like this or did shows like this. When I first toured, there was no GPS, man. Yeah. It was Road Atlas. You Road Atlas that destination. You got to the middle of that town, and then you went to the gas station or whatever and said, where is such and such venue?
Hmm.
You know, like just stuff like that. People don't know what life is like until you're at like a Kansas, like, or like an Oklahoma truck stop at 3 in the morning. You know,
Yeah, no,
like
I remember those days. Like you having, the printout
craziness.
from MapQuest,
Right.
like just trying to get to South Jersey. We were playing a show in like Galloway or something,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know where the fuck this place is. Like, yeah, I made the third left. What's the name of it? You know, and the whole
Right.
time you're trying to drive. That was it was a fun nightmare. That's
Yeah,
the way
that's
that's the way I would
actually a
describe it.
perfect way to put it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you had fun, and like I said, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. You know, like you
Hmm.
really found out who you were and who other people were during those times.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You spend enough time with someone and they're going to show their true colors. So you'll know you either have really good lifelong friends or you just never speak to those people for as long as you both shall live, you know?
Yep,
So,
I mean,
and
I
clearly,
could,
Drew and Brian, you saw they were on the episode
yep,
I had with Tony. And like, I'm still really good friends with those guys. I love them with all my heart. And we were, you know, in our band, like we would ride together, and then the drummer and the singer would ride together.
right.
So like we had our own little gang, and just so many funny like memories.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many times like that we've had such like, you know, just being able to get to like you said, like you get to a town and you got like 4 hours to kill. You know, you get
Hmm.
somewhere early and you're just able to like go places with these dudes that like are in it for the same reason you're in it for, you know, and like you might be walking around like the city of Chicago, you know, like which
Hmm.
is gorgeous. You know, I think it's gorgeous, and you know, you're walking the whole city with like some of your best friends at the time, and you're just like experiencing things that like later on shape you,
Big
and
time.
you know, like one of the biggest things for me is like I've always felt like I was a lot more street smart, you know, and being in the band helps you with that. Like it helps you not be afraid of a lot of things, and it helps you understand things a little bit deeper because you get to see things from this kind of parallel perspective where you're just like a visitor in all these places and you kind of get to see how they
Hmm.
react and then you're gone. And it's
Yeah.
kind of you get these like little tidbits of information as you go. And once you come home, you kind of process it all. And it kind of, when you set back out again, you kind of know a little bit more. So when you go to this
Yeah.
place, you do things a little differently. Or when you go to this place, you might not go to this area. So you're just building this kind of this internal thing inside of you that kind of knows what
Yeah.
to do in certain situations and certain areas. So it's definitely cool. So it's
One of the one of the things I liked a lot is that you end up in all these like weird, awkward situations being on the road and
oh
stuff.
yeah,
So later on, like when eventually, you know, the bands are over, like that part of your life is gone, you still have that. And I feel like we don't get as shook from being in uncomfortable situations anymore. You know, it's like like I remember this, like these weirdo gas station bathrooms. Like, yeah,
oh
no,
yeah,
that guy out there is just he's asking for $5. He's been telling the same story for 3 weeks. Like,
right.
there's no reason to be concerned. But it's stuff like that. Like you see, like it kind of, I don't want to say it warps your sensibilities, but I don't know, you kind of get a little toughened up. I
Right,
think would
right,
be the
right.
best
Yeah,
way to explain it.
yeah.
Do you
That's totally true.
do you have any like any real stories from the road that stick out as far as like the process of touring? Like not so much the shows right now, but just like getting from place to place. You know, being in the van.
So the biggest thing, and I think the biggest misconception, and why a lot of these younger bands got into this kind of life, um, is even when you're signed to a label, and a lot of people like we were us, Crash Romeo, and you know, were kind of we were still playing local shows as a signed band. Like we
Hmm.
weren't those big Jersey bands that were signed and off doing
Yeah,
crazy
you
stuff.
weren't My Chemical Romance
Right.
yet.
You know, we were still accessible. Um, but when you sign to a band, that doesn't automatically mean that they're going to help you
Yeah.
when the going gets tough, or they're going to, you know, bail you out of things. One story I can remember, well, two stories actually, and I'll never forget this. So it's our album release for Life on Life's Terms. Where we're literally leaving right after the album release at Vintage Vinyl. Was it Vintage Vinyl? Yeah, I think so. We're literally leaving right after that show to head out on a full U.S. tour to support the album. And we're out screwing with the van and stuff like that, and all of a sudden our trailer's leaf springs just break. Our trailer like flattens out. And we're like, oh my God, we have this thing, we have this tour set up. What are we going to do? Are we going to have to cancel? What are we? And again, you're a signed band. We don't have money to do that. Like, we don't have money to just bring it in and fix it. So our label was there. So we walk in like nice boys and go, hey guys, so our thing broke. We're not going to be able to go on tour. And we literally got Danny and Joe, our bassist at the time, your guys' parents are here. Why don't you ask them for money? And they just bounce. And like, we're sitting there going, what? Like, and thankfully,
I thought this is what you guys were supposed to do for us.
Right. And thankfully, my friends and family who were there, like, literally pulled together money for us to like get ourselves going. Joe's dad fixed the leaf springs, like, cause he knew a little bit about stuff. And then we headed out on tour. Then from there, we constantly had these garbage vans, which was the yellow one. And I'll never forget which you don't know, like you said, you don't know who you are or who other people are until the going gets tough. We're in Arizona, and anyone who's been in Arizona knows how awful it is as far as heat in the middle of summer, because that's when we typically did our best touring. Kids were out of school. Our van totally craps out. Totally breaks down. Can't even move it. Can't even start it. We end up paying to get it towed. We actually had to put our trailer in a local Walmart parking lot, backed up against the wall so no one robbed our equipment, which people don't realize that you had to do that on the road, back your trailer up.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you guys kept the trailer or just try to stuff everything in the back.
No, we had in the beginning, we had a single axle little tiny trailer where we were like the Tetris masters of putting that stuff in. Then
there was a system to fit all the gear.
Then as we went on, we ended up having Crash Romeo's old trailer. They got rid of their trailer, and we had taken, it was a nice double axle. It was like Christmas Day when we got that thing. We were able to actually fit our merch containers in there with our equipment.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we flat out breakdown. We call the label. Oh, maybe your parents could wire you money or something, or someone can help you. Click. So we're like sleeping in the van in the parking lot, which again, people don't realize. Like, there were many a times where we were sleeping overnight in parking lots, like with the doors open because it was so hot. And, so that's what we were doing in our broken down van until we gathered enough money to get it towed to a dealership. And at that point, we like scraped together our last money to get a hotel room. So I was just like MySpace bulleting, hey, we're broken down in Arizona, anything to do? We have we're running out of our hotel room tomorrow. Like, we're trying to figure this out. End up getting a message back from, I don't know if you remember the band A Change of Pace.
I remember the name. I don't remember much of like.
So their manager was just cruising MySpace, ends up seeing my bulletin. The band takes us in for like a week at this beautiful Arizona mansion-esque type house with a saltwater pool, all the food, like, oh, we got food, man. Don't worry about it. We got this. Don't worry about it. We got central air conditioning. Don't worry about it. So like, craziness of being broken down, and then, having this band kind of take us in and take care of us until we were able to get the van fixed and get back on the road. But like, just stuff like that. I remember breaking down in Victorville, California, which is not where you want to break down, at like 3 a.m. and having like cars circling us. And like, as each one of us are trying to find something to defend ourselves with, like, I remember Itchy grabbing a tire iron. I remember Derek stuffing keys into a sock. Like, and those are those crazy times where you really come together as a band, or you don't. And,
Yeah.
those were I think our craziest times of traveling was just like the random breakdowns or like being in truck stops and realizing that there's still awful things in the world. Like you don't get to experience it living in such like me, for one, living in New York and Queens where it's like a melting pot, but then going down south and, going into a bathroom and there's, anti this, anti that all over the walls and
Yeah.
horrible
Apparently
imagery.
people just get very angry and racist when they shit.
Yeah, apparently like they become Nazis when they go to the bathroom. So, but like, those were craziness of traveling, is realizing there's a whole world out there that us people who aren't able to get out have no clue about, that still exists.
Yeah, just expanding your own world, your own view of what's out, like you said, what's out there.
So that was like, we never really had like, I mean, we've skidded down like mountainsides driving before, like where literally like the trailer and the van are in like a V going just down this thing, where I remember that time, like I remember like it was yesterday, putting my blanket over my head and going, all right, whatever happens. And we ended up making it out due to like the experience of the dudes I was in the band with, of like Derek and Itchy at the front, like being like, we've been through it, it's okay, here we go, sort of thing. So like those kind of crazy moments that like added up were definitely like the craziest of traveling. And I just don't know if it happens anymore, because I'm not really cool with anyone that's in like a band today that's actively touring, to see like what, I can't imagine that touring is any easier now. If anything, I can imagine it's a lot harder, because there's a lot less people going to shows and a lot less people willing to spend money the way kids would spend money back in the day. But it's definitely interesting. It would be definitely interesting to see what's changed and what's different.
I remember those precarious situations, like the end, especially if you're playing at like the end of the night, when you have to load out and you don't know the area you're in. I remember being in New Haven, Connecticut, and loading out from this one bar, and there was, I don't know, there was something going on like the next block over, but we couldn't get our car close enough, so we had to carry all our shit for like half a block, like all like the amps and the heads and stuff. So there was people just kind of hanging out outside, just watching us. Like, what the fuck are these guys doing? And in a very like creepy way, like even if they weren't gonna do anything, which they didn't, but it was enough to make you really uncomfortable. And I remember just saying, like, all right, listen, just get behind me, just follow me, and if anything happens, I'm just gonna run forward. And if I don't knock everybody over, just kind of try to make sure I don't get killed. Just like weird things though, and of course, like nothing happened. So you get in the car like, well, that was all for nothing. I feel like an idiot.
Right.
Do you remember like bad shows? I like asking people about playing like terrible shows and just essentially bombing. I remember my worst bomb in West Philly. Like, what about you? Do you have a memory that stands out?
That's a good question. Like as far as like bad shows.
Where stuff just goes wrong. I remember playing in Boston one night, and the roof leaked in the place we were playing, and the water dripped right into Brian's amp and shorted out his entire amp. Like, so in the first set.
I mean, yeah, we've definitely had moments. We definitely had moments where like tubes blow, right when you're about to go on or before. I mean, this isn't a technical one. Like, this isn't a where things went wrong, technically, but one of like the worst shows was we played this festival like show in South Jersey.
Okay.
Never played. It was this big outdoor pavilion type place. Young kid promoting it, whatever. Decent number of people in attendance. I think the other band on it was the other signed band that was headlining or co-headlining or whatever was Houston Calls. I think they were on Drive Through or Rushmore, whatever the hell that was.
Okay.
But so it's time to go on to play, and we were supposed to get our half our guarantee, which is, for people who don't know what that is, that's your money. and we were supposed to get it half before we played and then the rest after we played. So we never received it before we played, but there were people there to see us. So we were like, screw it. We're going to play. Next, we go and play. And all of a sudden, we get done. We're packing up. I go to the kid to get our money. And the kid goes, sorry, there's no money for you guys. We had to pay out this. We had to pay out that. There's no money. We're like, what? That's what a guarantee is. That's what this is. It went from 0 to 60 really quick when all of his buddies all of a sudden show up in like this lifted pickup truck where his buddies pop out. All of a sudden his dad and his uncle come out, and literally it was almost like they should have had like pitchforks and things lit on fire. Literally were going to fight us and beat us up because we were like, yo, we need our money. Like, we played, like, this is how we get from one town to the next. To where then we had to go, this is a bad situation. This is super risky. We need to get out of here. So there was never like a bad show, but there was things like that happened places where like
that sounds like a bad show. I mean,
right.
Not the show was bad, but the experience.
Yeah, like you didn't get paid. Like we didn't get paid many times where you don't get paid, or they like all of a sudden the terms of your agreement changed. But having people try and beat us up after a show was definitely up there of like, holy crap. And then realizing that all these bands, like we talk about camaraderie, all these bands that were there all of a sudden hightailed it out of there when the going got tough. And we were like, Jersey and New York guys, first we were like, yo, come on, let's do this. So then all of a sudden we're like, yo, why is there 30 people here ready to fight us? To where we're like, all right, we don't need the money anymore. We're good. We'll chalk it up. So
you know what? Keep your fucking $15.
Yeah, right. It probably was something stupid like that. And the good thing was we did sell merch, so we did walk away with some stuff.
Yeah, at least that money goes straight to you guys.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing too. Like that money goes straight to a band most of the time. When you play when you play the bigger shows, obviously like when we toured with like Newfound Glory and Census Fail, I
remember seeing you guys in Allentown, PA.
We had to. That's when you have to actually give half your money to the venue. Yeah. They take a merch vig out of your stuff, but we got away with it a couple times where we left those shows before anyone could collect that money.
Oh, well, we're gonna give it to you. Nah, sorry, we're already in the turnpike.
Yeah, we were, and those bands were good about it, where they were like, just go, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I remember one time we had this isn't really related to merch, but just like, horrible things going wrong. I had a show booked in Ocean City, Maryland on, it was a Saturday. Was it a Friday? I think it was a Friday night. So we had worked all day too. And then the next day we had a show booked in Sea Isle City, New Jersey. So the place we were playing in Maryland, they had an apartment you could stay in, for all the bands and whatever acts were playing. So we start going. We load everything up at Drew's house. So me, Drew, and Brian were in my car driving down, and we're like halfway. And I don't know why I thought of it, but I'm like, "Hey, Drew, did you grab my my head for my amp?" And he goes, "No, I thought you had it." I was like, "Well, no, like it was in the stack that you were moving, so I assumed that you grabbed it. So you didn't grab it?" And he's like, "No, I didn't grab it." I said, "Well, I didn't grab it." And Brian, I didn't do anything. You guys were working, so I was like, "Fuck." So now we're already halfway down there. There's not enough time to turn around, go back, pick it up, and head down. So we're trying to scramble, trying to figure out what the hell we can do. So what we ended up doing was we called the venue ahead and we asked for the contact information for the band that was following us. And we got in touch with them. I called them up. I said, "Hey, we had a little issue. Like, is it cool if I use the bass player's equipment?" And they were like, "Yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal." So that saved our ass. And then the next day, of course, we had to drive all the way home, grab the head, and then drive all the way back to Sea Isle City. And I just remember the stress of being on the way there, just what the fuck am I gonna do?
Right. Yeah.
It's not. I think it's something with going through stress with other people that you're friends with, and being in those tense situations together and feeling like you're all in it together.
Right.
I think something about that builds that camaraderie and that that fondness You know what I mean?
I mean, it was one of those things where it was like if it was your problem, it was kind of everyone's problem because you're in such close quarters. Like if you had a problem with someone back home, you were on the phone in the van or you were on the phone outside the venue, and all of a sudden, the only people you had to kind of vent to was your band.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, they became your therapists and they became your, they became instantly closer to you. I mean, especially for me, because you're talking about dudes that have knew each other for a very, very long time before I ever knew them. So I want to say I was active in the band for like 4 years, 4.5 years, something like that. In my time there, like, I didn't know them like I knew my friends from home, but you started to share things, especially when Life on Life's Terms started to get written, was when like myself and Itchy, the drummer, got super, super close to where I was like, when I was in, sorry about that. When I was in, I realized I'm like ducking out. When I was,
sorry. I gotta keep reaching. I got like a knot in my back, and I gotta keep like rubbing it so I don't lock up.
Yeah. So like that was like when you really started to become, close with people and do things like that was when it really, you start to become closer and you start to like share things that you wouldn't share with anyone else. And, it was definitely interesting.
Yeah, you have your own set of experiences with those people.
Yeah.
So it's like it's its own relationship. So you said you were active in the band for like around 4.5 years. So like when it all ends, once the dust settles and the band is no more, everybody goes their separate ways. What was that like coming home from being a professional touring musician to now being, just a regular person again?
Right away it sucked. It was something. There's always a part of me where it was something that could have been prevented. The kind of demise of the band to eventually breaking up. I say that as like I made like one of the last phone calls to be like, I'm done, like this is over, sort of thing. But the day after, like because we ended and then we didn't have like a last show.
Well, did you guys have a farewell show in Hackensack?
Yeah, we had it at the School of Rock, but it was like months and months after we had broken up. So think about, so like it was a huge like mind thing because we had broken up, you kind of come to terms with it, and then all of a sudden you get thrown back into, after not seeing each other and not really practicing, going to this sold out awesome show at School of Rock and going, holy crap, like this is done. This is really, really done. And it was hard, especially me being still young at the time, was like, whoa, like all this awesome stuff is now going to go away. And I'm going to be pretty frank here. Like when you're in a band, you think you have some of the best friends in the whole world, and they're going to be part of your life for the rest of your life.
Is this in reference to the bandmates?
Bandmates.
Okay.
Bandmates. And this was a hard pill for me to swallow when we broke up and made it a little bit worse, was you go your separate ways. You realize that some of the things that binded you was the band.
Yeah.
And the dudes you thought were going to be at your future wedding aren't there. The guy that you were able to call or text isn't going to answer right away anymore. So that was really the hardest transition, was going from having these dudes that I considered my brothers to not always having them around anymore, and not around in the capacity that I was accustomed to. And that sort of thing was tough. And, the cliche thing of like, when they stop chanting your name, yeah. but it's true. You get so used to playing these shows and having that connection to then it all being poof gone, when you yourself felt like you had a lot of life left in you, was tough. Like it was tough to come home and be like, all right, now what? What do I do now? I get a regular job? Like, I don't perform anymore? Like, what's going on? What happens to all of those fans? Like, and mind you, Bedlight to this day has some of the most dedicated, greatest people that still, like, I get hit up often, like, hey, dude, was jamming Bedlight, like, brought me back, or hey, man, like, saw your post about this, like, love it, so the transition back into real life was sort of hard for me. Like, it was hard to, like, leave that behind, and something that I cared so deeply about over those 4 years. Like, and this isn't to pat myself on the back, but like, I like ate, slept, lived for Bedlight. There wasn't a moment where I wasn't awake till 4 a.m. figuring out how we can get more fans or do something or get a tour, or how many times I, probably embarrass myself hitting up these bands like, hey guys, like, where's this band from Jersey? We'd love to play with you guys when you come into town, or hitting up these people. And, having that just go away like that, where we had plans, there were tours booked. We had about 10 months of touring booked when we called it quits.
Wow.
So we had full US's booked. They weren't, tours with Dashboard Confessional, but
we're not playing the Coliseum here.
Right. They were decently built up tours that, we just weren't vibing anymore. And it was better to do what we did than to stick it out and have it affect the music and have it affect the fan base, because it wasn't their fault that we weren't happy anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's tough too, especially like we said, you spend so much time with these people. And if there is a problem that can't necessarily just be talked through, like you don't get any time apart. You're always with those people. So it just gets worse and worse, and it festers. And, sometimes those things become really volatile. I know when my last band broke up, it ended with basically almost a fist fight, and, it sucks to have it get to that point, because you have all these fond memories of being with the other guys and sometimes girls, where it's like you just go through all this cool stuff, and you have all these times when you remember just crying, laughing, having fun, and meeting people, and being in weird places, and eating bad food, and it's sad when that eventually ends, which in most cases it does, unless you're the Rolling Stones. But so you're home now. Now obviously, you're a married man, you're a father.
Yep. What's
it been like? How, like, once you got past the initial, sadness of the band being done, the grieving period, so to speak.
Right. Well, I mean, after that, I did a lot of things in music. I had actually, for a short period of time, I did like the Voice auditions and the American Idol auditions. I was actually in a band for a small period of time out of Massachusetts called Lannon Fall. They were friends of ours. They played with Bedlight many times, and they needed someone because their guitarist singer Jay, who's a great friend of mine, blew his voice out at the time. They'd call me. I wasn't doing anything. Joined. So now, many years later, even removed from that musical stuff, life is good. I mean, being married, being a father is the absolute greatest job I could ever have in the world.
That's a big one.
It'll always top the charts, no matter how much I've gone through. That little girl can do no wrong for the rest of her life. But it's great. I mean, I really can't complain. I have a really good life with my family, and like I said, I still dip in and out of music. My wife always is pushing me to be like, you ever gonna sing? You ever gonna sing? You ever gonna do this?
Really?
You ever gonna do that? Well, sidetrack. My wife, Francesca, when she was 16, 17, saw Bedlight play at the Living Room in Rhode Island. was a huge fan of the band, someone I always kept in contact with when we came into town. Fast forward many years later when I joined the band Land and Fall. Hey, I'm in a band in Massachusetts. You live in Massachusetts. You should come out to these shows. Like, that would be cool. We hang out. We start dating. The rest is history.
That's good. I like that story.
We live in a beautiful house with a beautiful daughter. And I met her when she was 16, when she saw my band play at like the worst venue in Rhode Island. And, and yeah, so having that like is something that's super cool because she remembers those times and she's able to kind of let me know, like when I'm kind of like, yeah, that's a thing of the past. She's like, do you not get the impact you had on people and what people took, especially from the Life on Life's Terms album, like what people took from that? Like that's something you should always hold, in your head and do it. And like, I always try and kind of get nostalgic and relive the glory days and kind of stuff. And even my daughter too, like I'll play her bedlight stuff and she'll sing along with some of it. And, we have like those Alexa things. So it's so funny because she'll ask Alexa to play something from Bedlight. So it's like, it's really surreal and weird sometimes, but it's super cool.
How old is she now?
She's going to be 3 in July.
Okay, so you still got some good years ahead of you.
Oh yeah, I still got a lot of explaining to do and a lot of cool showing, but like she's so super smart. She like super gets it. Like play Daddy's Rock Band, like and all this stuff. Like so, like for a short period of time, the song "Walk with Me" from Life on Life's Terms was like one of her like lullaby songs.
Really?
So having that, like that girl could literally sing that song from start to finish.
Wow.
Like super, super funny, even hits the high note more than I ever did. Like when I used to like cop out from the high note, which my wife likes to remind me of, that I used to cop out all the time. But no, so life is good. I mean, obviously we're in some crazy times, but this is definitely a life I wouldn't trade for anything. Even if you told me I could join Bedlight right back again and we could go on tour, I would have to say no, just because I would never want to take away from my daughter and from my family.
I'm the same way. Like, just coming out here, sometimes I feel bad because my studio's 10 feet away from my house.
Right.
But, I know, like I see with my son, he's genuinely happy when I'm around, like, and I'm playing with him. Like he likes being around me. And as much as like we had our own lives before our families started, we kind of have to put some of that on the back burner because we have priorities. And when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, that was a huge part of our lives, but what really matters? What's number one on your list? And every time it's going to be our families. Yeah. So
I think finding the balance is important and finding, and also finding realistic ways to do things. I mean, especially with the internet now and all of the things, like there's so many ways to do things that aren't, that don't take away. Like, I don't know if you saw, but recently, like I decided to do like these exclusive merch drops for Bedlight stuff. It's something that I feel like fans would find really cool, especially for fans who might have like grown out of their Bedlight merch or can't wear their Bedlight merch anymore.
I know can't wear any of my clothes.
I can't wear like the youth large small shirt anymore. So, so like I was looking at these other bands that are out now and like what they do that's cool. I was actually looking at this band Grayscale. I don't know where they're from. Pennsylvania, maybe.
They're from Westeros with a name like that.
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
Sweet Game of Thrones reference.
Yeah, they're a super cool pop punk sort of band, but they do these like cool exclusive merch drops. And I was looking at their stuff and I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool to just like do that like with Bedlight? Like just like for the small cluster of people that would buy those shirts, it would be so cool in 2020 to put out something like that you could reconnect, and it takes literally no time away from my family. Yeah. It takes nothing. It takes a click of the computer. So that's like something that I've been working on. That's probably like I have like a bunch of designs already done. So that's something that like I'm going to be doing pretty frequently, to kind of just scratch that itch of just reconnection. And then obviously I post things like that, and then I get the bunch of DMs and stuff like, hey, does this mean bedlight music? And I'm like, no, it won't ever mean bedlight music. I mean, I never want to say never, but it definitely doesn't mean it.
Most likely not.
Most likely not. I mean, we all live in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us across the country. So it's definitely something that like we can't all sit down and do anymore. And I don't think any one of us would do it on our own, as far as like releasing stuff. I know like when I had asked like the label owner a question about, can I actually put out this merch, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, dude, it has nothing to do with me. Do whatever you want. And he was like, does this mean new bedlight music? So even him like going like that. And I was like, yeah, it would be super cool to still put out stuff. And like, especially in the age where you could do everything digitally.
Yeah, you could literally all do stuff from where you're at,
Yeah.
like independently, and just kind of mix it all together, and there you go, new bedlight music.
Right, and who even know? Like that's
not to put ideas in your head.
But that's like the craziest thing, though, is like for me that like what like starts to get like those harebrained ideas going is like, what would that third album have sounded like?
Oh my God.
What like, because we went from this. Not to segue away from your like our beautiful dad moments, but like
no, go ahead.
But like, I think about The Dawn and Life on Life's Terms were two drastically different albums.
Yes.
Like so here's like, pull back the curtain. So The Dawn was basically their hardcore band with pop vocals. So they had all this hardcore metalish music.
Mm-hmm.
Already written, most of it, and they put Christian over it. Now let's write it all and tweak it a little bit, and then you transfer. Then we go to Life on Life's Terms, which was where they wanted to go. So a lot of people think I came into the band and was like, "This is the album we're doing." That is where they wanted to go as a band. It
made sense as a natural progression too,
right? This pop rock kind of thing. This more mainstream sound. Besides the fact,
rock and roll, man.
Oh yeah. Besides the fact, we pick up the producers Zach and Ken, who had already done Cartel's Chroma. They had worked with Jimmy Eat World. They had just finished up with Mayday Parade's A Lesson in Romantics, which to me in the scene, that's one of the quintessential scene records. So we made that transition. So I'm like, when I look at that, I go, man, where would we have gone from there? Like, would we have gone even poppier? Because our main goal was to cross over. Our main goal was to say, we're going to eventually, hopefully, cross over into that major label world to where we can go way beyond Trustkill, which was a hardcore label, a hardcore metal label. Crash Romeo, Roses Are Red, we were like, why the hell were we on that label?
Yeah, you guys definitely stood out a little bit.
Which towards the midpoint of the band, when we were really firing on all cylinders, we were getting those offers of upstreaming and different things like that through the distro deals that Trustkill had, but they just weren't good deals, so we didn't take them. But I wonder if, in a perfect world, if Trustkill drops us and says, hey, we're going to wash our hands of you, good luck out in the world, then we would have had the what we started and the momentum we started on Life on Life's Terms again, going into a third album, shopping to a Fearless. I'm thinking at the time, a Fearless, a Fueled by Ramen, some of these bands, because we had interest, but we just, unfortunately, it just kind of fizzled out.
Those pieces didn't come together.
Yeah, they didn't come together when they could have. So yeah, I always wonder that. I always wonder those things, and especially when fans get you, the fans will get you going, man. They try.
All it takes is one comment.
They try and but they're sneaky though, because I feel like they try and poke you so that like it's like subliminal, you know? It's like then you get off of your Instagram and you're like, am I writing a new BEDLIGHT album? You know, like what am I doing? Like, or am I am I hitting up like Itchy and all the guys? Like, what am I doing here? You
They
know,
have that way of just putting that seed in your head, just subtly being like, you want to, you got to scratch that itch.
right? Yeah, and the cool thing too is with all these people that contact us and I'll always try and share that information, because a lot of times, like being the lead singer, that's who gets contacted in these situations for the most part. And I try and share that information with the guys, or some of them, because I want them to know the effect that they've had on people. You know, because it wasn't just me. It never was just about me. We were a band. We were BEDLIGHT for Blue Eyes, and even after the fact, like, you know, I want them to know that people took those lyrics to heart. People tattooed those lyrics onto them. People didn't end their lives, not to get too serious, but like people didn't end their lives because they listened to a song that me and Itchy sat in his apartment with no heat in the apartment, wrapped in blankets, singing into recorders, like tape, like cassette recorders, because that's all we had at the time. Because we didn't own real computers. We had like these weird Dells, you know, or something. And, you know, and I feel like it's important for him or anyone to know the effect that they had on people. And that's like something too, as a father and as a husband, I still hold very near and dear, and hope to instill in my daughter that it's important to make connections with people. And it's important to never just discount somebody, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very easy for me to look at a DM and just click through it. It's very easy, especially when we were really moving as a band.
Yeah, especially when there's a lot of them.
There was a lot, you know, there was a lot of them, and there was a lot that I mean, if I click on my favorites in my email, I still have all of those emails that were sent to me over the years of, hey, I didn't do this because I was sitting in my car and Broken Door came on the CD, or Michael came on the CD, or this song came on the CD, and I was able to put down that bottle of this or stop doing that. And that's something that I want to instill for sure as a dad, is make those connections, make them count, and don't ever think and feel a lot more deeply than you're expected to. Because I think there's a lot of preconceived expectations, and there was always these preconceived expectations with me when I read, you know, the absolute punk comments and this comments, oh, he's cocky, oh, he's this, oh, he's that. But if I was cocky, or if I didn't talk to you, it was because I was thinking 30 steps ahead on how to help somebody, or how to look differently at a situation to help a kid who couldn't get into a show or couldn't make it to a show. How could we get them there? How could we do this? So it was one of those things where I want my daughter to know, like, think deeper, feel deeper, and connect with people, because it just makes you feel a lot better in your life than just discounting something, because it's easier to do that than to engage with someone where you know this conversation is going to turn into something maybe you don't want to talk about, but you're going to help that person. You're going to talk that person through something pretty serious. So like that, like those are things like you can't get from it just like anywhere else. And those are like, when you put yourself out there, especially Life on Life's Terms, like if you go through and listen to those songs, a lot of it is kind of, you know, a lot about points in each one of our lives, and bits and pieces. Each song has just like little tidbits from each one of us. And there was no fabrication there. It was all things we were going through. It was all things we were seeing, you know, like leaving your innocence somewhere, you know, was us going out in the city and seeing all these vultures prey upon kids at these bars and these clubs we were going to, you know, waste my time. Just like even the poppiest of songs all had their little tidbits. And I am most proud that people saw that and people saw those lines and were able to pick from them. And that's something too, like when my daughter's older, I hope she listens to it and asks, and I want her to ask me questions, you know?
Yeah, what were you going through when you wrote this?
Right.
What did this mean to you?
Who is this about? Who's this part about? Who's that part about? Because having that deeper understanding, I think, will help her understand her own life when she goes through something that's similar. And like anything, that's what music is. That's
a beautiful thing about music, is it's able to form those connections.
Right. You're able to sit there with people and they're able to say, man, one of the biggest lines, you know, if I knew my father, then I would ask if he felt like this at 23. That I don't know what that's like. Right. That line was an itchy line. But so many people related to that. So many people who didn't know their father, didn't know their mother at the young age was like, I'm going through all of this. Did this person who I don't know or didn't have a relationship with at the time, did they go through this? Did they feel this way? Did they handle it the same way? So I want my daughter to have those moments where it's like, man, I need to ask my dad or my mom that question, because did they ever feel this way? Did they ever feel like they were ugly? Did they ever feel like no one wanted them around? Did they ever feel like they weren't talented or worth it? So it's like, those are those things. And I think those are those lessons.
Yeah. That's something though, that is going to it's going to fall on our shoulders as parents, is to build that kind of relationship with our kids where our kids feel comfortable asking us those questions. Because I know me particularly, I really didn't feel comfortable talking about that stuff with my parents growing up. And I really want to make sure that doesn't happen with my son now. Like, I want him to be able to talk to me and to have confidence that, you know, he can just be vulnerable with me. I tell
my wife all the time, it's all about communication. Yeah. It's all about, you know, I worked, since I moved up here for 6 years, I worked in a middle school. In a room where kids were diagnosed with autism, and I worked with plenty of other kids with other mental health disabilities. And one of the biggest things I saw in the middle school was kids don't communicate. They will go through their whole day, whether they're being ridiculed for something by an adult, which is the scary part, where sometimes the adults are the biggest bullies in the room.
Yep.
Or you have the kid bully, and they don't go home and they don't communicate because they don't feel like they can.
Suffering in silence.
I want my daughter to be able to come home and say, I had this day. It was terrible. Did you ever feel this way? How did you deal with it? And go from there. Because I feel like so many kids are afraid to do that. Or they just don't have that relationship. They don't have that parent that's home at the same time they are, unfortunately, due to work. And that's to no fault of the parent. You know, sometimes there's no control over that. But it does start with feeling like you could be comfortable and feeling like you could talk to a kid.
Absolutely. All right. So we're running up to the end.
I know
now.
I'm talking your ear off, dude. No. So
that's
sorry.
It's a podcast. If you weren't talking, we'd be failing.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. That just shows that you're comfortable. Okay, that means I'm doing my job. So we always end the segment or the show with a segment called Humble Pie, where we each share an embarrassing story. I like these. I love these things because it's funny. It's to know that something like this has happened to someone else. You know, you're not alone in these weird, awkward situations. So I have one ready. If you're ready, you can go first, or I can go first.
You go first.
Okay. So
I'll see how embarrassing you get, and then I'll go from there.
Listen, I've already told stories about shitting my pants on the show.
I'm sure you have. Yeah. I'm sure.
This one is related to the band. When we first started the band, you know, we were making the MySpace. We had, you know, these little like band like promo shots that we did in front of like some abandoned farm. It was like stupid. We took them at night. They came out on someone's like shitty camera phone.
You know what? I feel like I remember those pictures, to be honest with you. Like super, super dark, like super like moody. Like we are we scream. This is what we
Yes.
do.
Oh, these guys definitely scream. I
Yeah.
can tell. I mean, we made fun of Drew because he would wear his hoodie like halfway unzipped, and like the sides were almost down to his shoulders. And we were like, "Why is it in every picture you have that?" I don't know. It just
It
didn't.
was his thing.
Anyway,
It was a shtick.
he never did it again after that. So we decided now we were gonna take real pictures. So we went down to Asbury Park. We were out like by the water and like the old they had the casino that's all abandoned. And at one point, like we got back to the singer at the time, Pete. His girlfriend's sister was doing the photos for us. So we got back to the house. We're going through everything, and then Drew and Darren, they said, we need something else. Like maybe we do ones with like makeup, like really be scene kids. And now, like, they obviously all kind of look the part for like scene kids, and I'm just some bald guy. And I decided that I was gonna like, okay, well, if we're gonna do makeup, then I had like, like it looked like the Misfits, like the lines down the eyes, like Sting from friggin' World Wrestling Federation.
That's pretty badass, though.
It really was.
If you look like Sting, though, that would have been badass.
I looked like a
But you looked
Sting's
like
gay
the
brother.
cheap Party City version of
Yeah,
Sting.
it was not good. And of course, we posted them, on the MySpace, and everybody else kind of looked cool. I mean, in hindsight, nobody really looked cool, and I just remember posting that and being like, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And then when people saw it, they're like, what the fuck is that, bro? Like, what are you guys trying to be, Danzig or something? Like, I don't understand why you're wearing makeup. And of course, mine was the only one that looked like face paint instead of makeup. Everybody else just had like little tasteful eyeliner. It's just the most ridiculous thing to say out loud. And I just looked like a clown. And of course, everybody saw it, and I was like, guys, we got to take these down. We got to take these down. So we ended up taking them down, and I hung my head in shame for like a month after that.
I think that you probably looked great, and I think that they should probably be promos for like just your shot should be how you market yourself from now on.
Yeah. I honestly don't even know if those pictures still exist.
Cause like I feel like didn't you recently did a doctor? Did you interview a doctor?
Yeah, 2 episodes ago I had a psychologist
Right.
on here.
So if you would have sent him those pictures as like this is the guy who's interviewing you, I'm sure it would have your credibility would have shot through the roof.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad he hasn't listened to all the episodes.
Right.
Here's some of the most ridiculous shit I'm talking about.
So I got one that was it was back when we were recording Life on Life's Terms, and we were at Tree Sound Studios in Georgia. Beautiful facility. Tons of heavyweights have been there and recorded. So I had never eaten Thai food before in my life. So I didn't know that these long red things in my food were these crazy chili peppers, right? So I'm like, and no one's telling me this. The guys in the band had never really eaten that because we were in Jersey. We were eating garbage plates and, fast food and stuff like that. We weren't eating Thai food, like it wasn't a thing.
Taylor ham, egg, and cheese on a bagel.
Right, yeah. We weren't eating like this like high-end Thai food. So we're eating the Thai food. So now we're downstairs in this area. So I'm munching this stuff, man. I'm like tearing through it because like the producers paid for it. So I was like, order me this, order me that. I was living on corn dogs up until then in the microwave at the Red Roof Inn,
my God.
doing that where they almost kicked us out because we were so filthy. But so I'm eating this, and now I'm eating these peppers like nothing. I'm eating them. I finished my whole thing. So as we walk in, as we're doing this, the band Collective Soul, which is like the old, legendary band, is walking in because they're doing something in the expensive studio. So the band goes back upstairs to start messing with stuff. I'm downstairs because now I'm like sweating. I'm like holding on to things because I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So they're loading all their stuff in. So to get to the bathroom, I have to cross them. Like they're all standing there. I have to cross them. So before I get to cross them and get past them to the bathroom, I start to violently vomit at their feet. Violently vomit at this legendary like band. Like, I mean, they're like super influential to me growing up, and I'm like vomiting at their feet. It's getting on them. And I just like, I look up, I do one of these, like, and I'm like, oh, my bad, guys, Thai food. And they just start busting out laughing. And it was one of those moments, like in the moment, it was so embarrassing because I couldn't stop myself, nor could I get past them. It was just bad news all around. And a moment I remember, and it was hilarious. And besides the fact is we're talking about a multi-million-dollar studio as well. Like, this wasn't like this like rehearsal space. This thing was like beautiful, like run on sustainable. Before sustainable was a thing, this place was run on like recycled this and all this stuff. And I'm vomiting at this legendary band's feet.
Here they come. Yeah, some kid threw up in the lobby.
Yeah, because I couldn't handle my Thai food. Like, talk about first world problems. Like I'm sitting there like vomiting up my the high end studio. But yeah, so that's an embarrassing one. I mean,
That's a good one.
I have many over the years, but that's one that I figured was like appropriate. Look at this thing. What's going on? Quarantine hair, man. You don't have to worry about it. But
no, I don't. My barber hasn't stopped working since this whole thing started.
Yeah, your barber Bick hasn't started working.
I actually became a barber myself. I've been giving my son haircuts in the yard.
Oh, sweet. Dude, my wife did mine, cleaned up my sides the other day. I haven't done it in so long, but it's just, I'm like a hairy beast. So it goes... Like, you have to do it outside with like the wind blowing. Yeah. Otherwise, like I'll kill the birds or something.
I've been watching all like the Puerto Rican barbers on Instagram, like show you how to do a fade. I'm like, baby, I think I got it figured out. Like, I want tell Ty to come out here, and he's like, I don't want to.
He's like,
no, come on, I can do it right.
He's like, thank God I don't have to go to school right now.
Yeah, I know. They came out okay. I mean, I'm
there you
no pro,
go.
but all right, Danny, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, man. I appreciate it. This was fun.
This was awesome. I love talking shop, man.
Things. It's awesome. So, do you have anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, because I'm old and there's nothing really to plug. I mean, if you are a fan of Bedlight and you are listening to this, I will be doing merch drops soon. It's literally, I'm making no money off of it. This isn't a money grab. Like, I already got that DM too. This isn't a money grab. This is literally for the people who loved our music to have something in 2020. I'm trying to work on getting the rights to do vinyl. That is like a pie in the sky dream, to do it on a bigger scale. Mm-hmm. So that's something that could be happening soon. But the merch drops are definitely happening. You can follow me on Instagram. I think it's Danny Rinaldi Music. And that's where I post all the stuff. That's where I'm probably going to keep it, because I have the most people, rather than like trying to redo an Instagram for the band or something like that and have people
that's probably a good idea.
Misinterpret it. So I will be doing the merch drop. So if you are a fan or were a fan and want to grab some like 2020 swag from the band, that'll be where to find it. So that's kind of all I have to plug. After this, I'm going to mow my lawn and look at I own goats and chickens and ducks.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to go tend to them as well. So it's a pretty nice Saturday, I'd say.
You have a long day of toils in the farm.
It's a lot different. It's a lot different these days.
Yeah. Well, brother, it's been great talking to you, man. I really appreciate you coming on here.
Absolutely.
So, well, there you have it. That was my conversation with Dan from BEDLIGHT for Blue Eyes. Big shout out to him for coming on here. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. I love having old musicians come on here, and we get to reminisce back in the old days. So it was fun. I enjoyed talking to him. He's a real nice guy, and I'm thankful that he took the time to come on here and share his story with all of us. So you guys, as always, know where to find us, APodAmongstMen on Instagram and Twitter. You could reach us through email at APodAmongstMen@gmail.com for any long-form questions or comments. And, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. Make sure you follow on SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. You know what I'm saying. You know the drill by now. So, until next time, see you later.